Trust is the currency of teams. Trust in leadership, trust in one another, trust in the journey, trust in the process, trust that where you're taking people and leading them is inherently a safe and okay space to be in. In today's episode, I'm going to unpack with you a particular founder identity that I have found to be really helpful in anchoring my leadership, my mind, and the way that I interact with my team that builds trust. It's called the Benevolent Founder. I'm Valerie Ling. I'm a clinical psychologist and I'm a clinic business owner who loves to help other clinic business owners get out of private practice leadership prison into leadership freedom. In the early years of running a business and leading a team, I discovered that I was being perceived by team members probably as being intimidating and maybe a little bit aloof. And it was as if some of the leadership conversations I would have that maybe were a bit trickier were met with some shock. It was like I had threw a hand grenade, a bomb into our interactions. And I really couldn't understand what was going on. After contemplating one particularly disastrous conversation that really led to a disastrous outcome, I sat back and I started to think about actually giving new people who were joining my team a particular heads up. And for a few years, I'd say this, and I probably still do, and that is because I am a psychologist by training, and if you see me interacting with clients, I am a different person altogether because the role requires me to use a part of my personality, a part of my persona that is helpful and welcoming and gentle and engaging for therapeutic purposes. But I'm also not a personality that is a natural therapist. I've had to work a lot on actually working on my tone of voice, working on my pacing, actually bringing down the volume of what I say and softening the tone when I'm in therapy. If you meet me, however, in all my other spaces, in church or at home, in the car or outside, I'm pretty fast, I'm pretty loud, I'm pretty forceful in tone of voice. And unless you get to know me, you won't understand that it's not an actual deliberate flip. It's actually a lot of who I am is that way. And it fits into a leadership space in that, not that I'm saying that all leaders need to be driven, dynamic, and loud. However, leading from an authentic space for me means bringing the best of who I am to my team and therefore to the services and the solutions and the innovations that we can derive and develop for our community. And so in the early days, I would actually say, look, you probably think my personality is this, and I'd reference, a fairly common language, the Myers-Briggs, which psychologists don't really like, but I just find it a helpful way to communicate. And I'd say, look, my personality type is actually an ENTJ. I'm extroverted. I have I'm led by strong instincts and intuition. I make decisions based on criteria, fairness, objectivity, black and white sort of ways of looking at the situation. And I have a judging preference, which means I don't really like to keep things open-ended for too long. I like to bring things to a close. And I would say now you might think that because I'm a psychologist, my personality or how you would expect to relate with me is more feeling and probably more practical and more detailed and at a slower rate of interacting with you. But that's not how you're gonna see me when you're interacting with me just as Valerie, a human being, and more than likely Valerie as your leader. And so I would say this, and it was an interesting conversation starter. And one of the newer recruits that stuck out at me saw this as an opportunity for him to offer his personality, which was fantastic. He offered me his personality and he said to me, and so what's likely going to happen in times of conflict is I'm likely to do that or to do this. And it opened up a fantastic conversation for the both of us to say, well, how will we know what those signals are? How are you going to know when I'm just being me and I'm not actually being aloof or aggressive or intimidating? And how am I going to know that when you flip into that mode, that you're not being, not taking it personally and, not withdrawing from work altogether? And it was actually one of our first onboarding conversations. And I found it so helpful because in the future, when we did have these conversations, I'd remember what he'd said. And, possibly either referenced it in my brain or even referenced it in our conversations to say, look, could it be that we're in this mode? Or maybe I just need to be a little bit more aware that I'm flipping into this mode and you're needing this. I found those onboarding conversations so helpful that I started to actually think about what is it that brings healthcare professionals together that want to stick around with one another. Well, here are a couple of suggestions I have about the motivations. Number one, there can be a primary motivation for healthcare practitioners to gather around a hub or a collective of people that will provide them knowledge and training. I call that an informational motivation. It's about healthcare professionals who are looking to build their own repertoire of knowledge, and they'll hang around for a little while, and they're really testing the second part of the stickability factor. The second part of it is the transformational factor. If I hang around with these people, am I actually going to become a better person? Am I actually going to refine my own values and my own integrity and my own ethics? And if I hang around them long enough, am I actually really going to be proud of the work that we do, the people that we are becoming, and the people, and being the best for the people that we serve? There's a transformational quality that happens as well when we're looking at leading a health team. And from there, I started to do some reading in my own study and in my own personal life about a chemical or a neurochemical that has mainly only been associated with sex and maternal bonding with kids, with babies who are breastfeeding. Oxytocin is that chemical. And I started to look a little bit deeper in terms of oxytocin in the workplace. And I discovered that there is a body of research that looks at how this bonding chemical, the tend and befriend chemical, is a very important chemistry in the building of trust within an organization. Oxytocin is a tend and befriend chemical. It motivates us, it drives us to want to make a connection and care for the connection. Oxytocin in organizations probably more highly linked for the reason for why we would trust a bunch of strangers and a primary stranger whom you only just met, your leader. Why would you? Oxytocin is a trust and belonging chemical. And if you follow me long enough, you'll actually hear me talk a lot more about this primary need for us to understand that trust and belonging, from looking at it from this perspective of oxytocin, is really important. Why? Because of a lot of times we actually hear organizations who are onboarding and trying to bring people into the group using maybe activities that are more for dopamine, more for pleasure seeking. So if you're doing, pizza nights and movie nights, or the thing that I don't like, which is, going out and doing high ropes and all of that, which probably doesn't bring a lot of dopamine for some people. We're really looking at the trust building facility in our organization and in our business as being quite outside, activity based. However, oxytocin gives indication to someone when they have received something that they believe is trustworthy, and when they have opportunities to give to someone that fosters trust. And so I crafted the type of leadership persona that I thought was really important for health clinic leaders and health business owners to understand. And that is of the benevolent founder. Why should you trust me? Not just your future, but your personhood. Why should you trust me long enough that once you get the information and the knowledge from our environment, that you want to stick around and be a part of our tribe and our collective? There are 4 elements of the benevolent founder that I would love to share with you. Benevolence simply means that we are intrinsically motivated for team. Generosity for team, benefit of the doubt for team, looking out for the team, protecting of the team. It's a benevolence that marks the trait of the founder, that when we are actually building and when we are actually leading our business, we are actually driven by benevolence for our team. And here are the 4 segments of benevolent founders that I've crafted and that I speak about in my coaching programs. First of all, the benevolent founder has to work on ourselves. We actually need to make sure that we have enough reflective space, enough emotional resources, enough accountability structures, enough self-awareness. Go into therapy if you need to work on me so that I remain authentic and kind and generous and clear and benevolent in my motivation. So working on me. The next is working on my leadership, ensuring that I'm tuning into channels, whether it's podcasts or books or being mentored or being taught by other founders, where the leadership is essentially benevolent for team, servant-hearted, leading a generation and believing that they can make a difference. So working on your leadership, really, really important to discern whether the model that you subscribe to leads you to be benevolent towards your team. Third, working on our practice. And that is actually looking at the way that we run our business, the way that we look at metrics, the way that we look at analytics, that is not self-motivated, that's not scarcity motivated, that's not fear motivated, but is actually appreciating the contribution, the value, recognizing excellence, celebrating team, driving the practice mechanics and metrics that are for team, with team, through team, and ensuring that our policies from A to Z are actually part of the benevolent founder's legacy to their team. And finally, the benevolent founder explores. This is probably something I got from my dad. My dad worked in a bank all of his life, only worked in the one bank. And my dad was sent out very often to go overseas and travel and do his work. And one of the things that sticks for me about my dad is whenever he came back, he brought something of his exploring with him. Now, I don't know whether it was intentional, but for me as a kid, it really stuck in my mind. If he went to a particular country, he would bring back something of that country, and I would share in that experience. And I grew and I learned and appreciated different cultures and where he went, and a curiosity built in me. And so for me, the benevolent founder goes outside and explores. This is why you can't be locked in as a therapist, because you will never leave your room. The benevolent founder goes outside. They explore networks. They explore different industries. They explore different innovations. They go out and listen to the suffering on the ground. What is happening out there? And they come back and they bring it back to their team as a way to say, guys, here's what's happening on the outside. Here's what's being done. What do you think? So the benevolent founder goes out, they explore. If this has resonated with you, I'd love to know what you think. Have you ever come across this framework? Have you ever come across this way of looking at things? The benevolent founder works on themselves, works on their leadership, works on their practice, goes out, comes back in for team, through team, and with team. I hope to catch you in the next episode. If you like what you're hearing, make sure to subscribe.